From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television.
Hello and welcome. I am Olumide Macaulay. Tonight, the presidency says no Nigerian on its delegations for the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit was forced to undergo tests for the Ebola virus. The Lagos state government storms a new generation church over rumors that an Ebola patient is undergoing spiritual cleansing in that church. Judicial workers to resume duties tomorrow after a strike which paralyzed the sector. And at least 367 people killed by an earthquake in southwest China. Thank you so much for joining us. No Nigerians on the delegations of President Goodluck Jonathan to the United States was tested for Ebola virus. Well, this is coming from the President's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Dr. Reuben Abati. There were rumors that the U.S. government is carrying out tests for Nigerians coming with the President for the U.S. African Leaders Summit holding in Washington. The President, on his arrival, urged Nigerians living in the U.S. that there is a lot more to be done to take the country to the next level. Over 50 world leaders will be participating in the summit.
The presidential jet touched the grounds here in Washington at about 8 o'clock in the morning. The airport ceremony was not very huge, but the president made straight to his hotel where he received a rousing reception from Nigerians in diaspora living in Washington, D.C. He told them that he is doing everything possible to make Nigeria a comfortable place to live in. The media advisor was on hand to debunk reports back home that Nigerians on this trip will be tested for Ebola virus, a story he described as untrue.
A number of people, just before we left home, were carrying quite all kinds of stories. I want to assure you that those stories are untrue. I read something on Twitter, or was it online, that President Jonathan's delegation will be tested for Ebola virus. No such thing happened. The Americans received President Jonathan and his delegation very warmly, very nicely, and we're already on the ground. And you can be sure that as events unfold, we will keep Nigerians fully abreast of developments here, and everyone will be well informed.
On what Nigerians stand to gain by the U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit?
In terms of gain, this will provide opportunity to further deepen our relationship with the United States, both bilateral and trade relations. It will also provide an opportunity for President Jonathan to further interact with other African leaders. About 50 of them have been invited to attend this meeting. And in the course of the meeting, of course, issues of mutual interest among African countries and between Africa and the United States will be on top of the agenda.
Observers say this summit will bring about a turning point in the lives of Africans and their leaders, and of course, the Americans, who don't seem to do anything that doesn't favor them. From Washington, D.C., Chukwuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
Well, back here in Nigeria, as the Lagos state government continues to take measures to curtail any possible spread of the Ebola disease in the state, the team led by the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Jide Idris, met today with the General Overseer of the Synagogue Church for All Nations, Pastor T.B. Joshua. The meeting became expedient following rumors of possible carriers of the virus visiting the church, which is famous for healing and miracles and attracts visitors from within and outside the country. But Pastor T.B. Joshua denies such allegations, saying there is no person with the Ebola virus in the church. Meanwhile, the State Health Commissioner has advised that the disease is deadly and the cooperation of everyone is needed to assist the government curb the spread of the virus.
We felt because you have people from the Southwest African region coming here, there is a risk, possibly the large population here, we don't know. You might have people start to get cases like that. And we felt that the federal government and the state government are working hand in how to control this, how to contain this. We have our strategies, and we said we needed to share with you. Again, we need to assess what resources you have, because the population here, whether it's one case or two cases, if you allow this to go out, it's a major problem. That's why we are here to work together on how to contain the spread of this disease.
We don't have any branch in Liberia. We don't have any group coming from Sierra Leone or Guinea. So we don't have. We are not expecting anybody concerning this epidemic. So, and I want once again to assure you that we are on the ground. We are doing the same job you are doing, and we want to appreciate your coming here. And you are because we are because you are. And no one can go it alone.
After a long meeting today, members of the Nigerian Medical Association, the NMA, failed to reach an agreement on whether or not to call off their ongoing strike. The meeting, which took place at the association's headquarters in Abuja today, had a good attendance of members. However, one of the officials of the association told journalists that the body has some pending issues to resolve, which will determine the next line of action, after which a decision will be reached and a resolution will be communicated in 48 hours. And now for some expert advice on how to end terror attacks in Nigeria. Some scholars in the United Kingdom believe that apart from the economic solution, there is the need for a Marshall Plan that could allow some level of force to end insecurity, particularly in the Northeast. Our correspondent in London engaged some experts who shared some insight with her on the various recommendations being explored.
So far, various attempts at finding a lasting solution has not stemmed the tide of terrorism in Nigeria perpetrated by the radical Islamic sect Boko Haram. Military engagements are struggling to match the firepower of the insurgents, yielding fragile results. Calls for negotiation and dialogue have yielded very little. In the meantime, Boko Haram, rising through the ranks of radical international terrorism groups, have become more audacious in their operations. Experts on international affairs in the UK reiterate the arguments on poverty and illiteracy in northeast Nigeria as a catalyst for insurgency. Richard Dowden, director of the Royal African Society, explains some of these dynamics.
I think Boko Haram's on a different scale to what happened in the Delta. I mean, this seems to me to be something from outside.
And the struggle for political power.
Professor Paul Collier of Oxford University, who is away from the UK, joins the conversation with Channels Television via Skype.
So I think it's a combination of internal politics in Nigeria interacting with an external, well-financed ideological agenda. And all that in a region where young men are poor, have very few options, and the violence itself is reducing the legitimate options that they face.
Among the plethora of recommendations, a broad-based plan for economic regeneration in northern Nigeria, which the federal government has dubbed the Marshall Plan, tops the chart. Idle minds must be put to good use. The North must shed its toga of poverty and illiteracy. But money is only one part of the solution, and the success of a Marshall Plan depends on the political structures in place to manage it.
We've seen, for example, in Iraq, that democracy hasn't produced leaders who talk or live unity. On the contrary, it's produced highly divisive leaders. So a democratic politics in the North is not enough to produce an inclusive society. We need leaders who actually live and talk inclusion.
So that's why I've always thought a Marshall Plan for in Africa generally, no, you need to build up the capacities of the people, not just the infrastructure. So I think just throwing a whole lot of money at it certainly wouldn't work, though long-term investment in health, in education, in infrastructure, roads, and then encouraging businesses to move there, to create jobs. I mean, that's the job of government. And it's a long-term process.
Senior lecturer from the London Metropolitan University, Dr. Bisi Adewale, believes dialogue is inevitable.
These are the ways ahead. Strong leadership with focus. A government who knows what it's doing. We need diplomacy. We need to equip our military. We need constant communication.
Security takes the largest chunk of the Nigerian budget. The amount runs into billions of dollars. Doris Okenwa, Channels Television News, London.
Victims of the 2011 post-election violence in Kaduna State have been complaining about the federal government's not fulfilling her promise to assist them despite losing property worth over 15 billion naira during the crisis. The federal government had on April the 24th, 2013, announced the approval of 5.7 billion naira in relief assistance to 9 of the 14 affected states for disbursement to people who suffered losses during the incident. However, those in Kaduna State complain that 3 years after the crisis, they are yet to receive any assistance from the government, despite the fact that they are the worst hit.
The April 2011 national elections conducted by INEC may have come and gone. The elections ushered in happy winners and also left in its trail colossal loss of lives and properties worth billions of naira. Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria, has witnessed about 4 major ethno-religious crises from 2000 to date. But that of 2011 was more devastating due to the high number of casualties recorded. Up to now, many people are yet to overcome the shock.
I lost over 223 million, and it's there with them. We submitted it to the panel. We wrote down the breakdowns, everything, the cost, even the receipts we used in buying some of the things we did. We had over 48 staffs because we run shifts. We're only grateful to God is that nobody was wounded that night.
More than 4,000 people were reportedly killed and 50,000 displaced after supporters of a defeated candidate went on a rampage in the northern part of the country. Although 14 states were affected during the violence, the federal government released funds for only 9 states. And so far, the benefiting states are Bauchi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Niger, Jigawa State, Katsina, Kano, Adamawa, and Akwa Ibom states, while Kaduna, Borno, Yobe, Gombe, and Nasarawa states have not yet benefited. Reacting to the complaint of the victims, the Kaduna State government says it is yet to receive any money from the federal government and stated that the state government has so far disbursed over 500 million to assist the victims.
Kaduna is the worst hit. The number of properties that were lost during the crisis, as well as the lives that were lost compared to other states that were compensated. Kaduna State was actually hit.
Some of the states have since benefited the assistance, but Kaduna State is yet to receive any assistance from the federal government. But I know that the federal government constituted a committee, which committee come to Kaduna and make their findings.
Any person from the expectations of the Kaduna victims and other states who are yet to benefit from the relief assistance is that the authorities concerned should, as a matter of fairness and justice, try and extend the assistance to them. And most importantly, provide adequate security for the citizens ahead of the 2015 elections in order to avoid a repeat of the ugly incident of 2011.
In part 2, after the break, INEC insists there's no collection of permanent voter card by proxy. Please stay with us.